Good afternoon, folks. It's Roby here with the Manufactured Mind. Coming at y'all today with a pretty extensive episode on winning and losing. The episode is called Manifesto of Sovereignty, the Philosophy of Winning and Losing. This is episode 19. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Alrighty, folks. So, the core principle of this philosophy is life as war. The philosophy begins with a radical assertion: life is war. This is not a poetic exaggeration, it's a metaphysical stance, and every moment is a battlefield where sovereignty and subjugation clash. There is no neutral ground, no safe harbor. Existence itself is dynamic, never static. To live is to act, and to act is to choose. To win is to claim sovereignty over your mind, your impulse, and your destiny. To lose is to fall into subjugation, ruled by fear, addiction, and unconscious forces. This is not metaphorical. It is ontological, okay? Existence itself demands engagement. Passivity is defeat. So why war? Well, existential reality. Sartre argued that existence precedes essence. We are condemned to be free. This freedom is both a gift and a burden because every choice defines us. Inaction is not neutrality, it is a choice that tilts towards entropy. Then entropy as the enemy. So nature tends toward disorder. If you do nothing, decay wins. Again, if you do nothing, decay wins. Passivity is surrender. Thus, war is not optional, it is the condition of being. And then the psychological warfare. So the battlefield is internal. Your conscious will fights against unconscious drives, habits, and fears. Carl Jung called this the tension of opposites, the ego versus the shadow, something I often talk about in my episodes. So this whole philosophy implies that there's no middle ground. It's a radical accountability. There is no safe zone. So every thought, every habit is either strengthening sovereignty or feeding subjugation. And then binary ethics. This is a hard ethic. No compromise, no gray areas. It rejects relativism and demands clarity. And then there's some philosophical parallels here too, folks. Because, this is something I came up with, but it kind of stems from Nietzsche, which is his life. He said his life as will to power. To live is to assert, to overcome. And then it aligns with Stoicism in regards to life as a discipline of control. You either govern your mind or let externals govern you. And then it also resonates with Bushido, the samurai code. Life as a series of decisive moments. Hesitation is death. And it makes sense, folks, if you really think about it, man. It really does. Life is not a passive experience. It's an active confrontation with forces that seek to shape, limit, and consume us, folks. To exist is to engage in a perpetual struggle. A war that is waged not on distant battlefields, but within the confines of our own consciousness. This is the essence of the core principle. Life is war, and every moment is a choice between sovereignty and subjugation. Again, let's see here. So the illusion of the middle ground. Modern culture often romanticizes balance, suggesting that one can coast through life, but neutrality is an illusion, folks. Even silence is a choice. Even passivity is a vote for entropy. The battlefield is constant and the enemy is relentless. Jungian psychology frames this as the tension between the ego and the shadow, like I said before, the conscious self versus the unconscious drives. If you do not confront the shadow, like I've said many times, it governs you from the dark. Addiction, fear, self-sabotage are all symptoms of defeat. So, in regards to addiction, I have concluded that I am no longer going to be defeated. I'm sick of being defeated. And you should too. You should be sick of it too if you're struggling with substance abuse. And maybe if you start looking at it as defeat, maybe you'll start changing your approach, your tactics to this war that is going on within us. It is your inner self screaming at you to recognize it and integrate it. You have to have accountability, radical accountability. Let's see here. So we've got some practical application. So daily combat. Every decision matters. Skipping a workout, losing. Practicing discipline, winning. It's easy, folks. It's very simple. Recovery as warfare. So relapse is not a setback. It is surrender. Victory requires vigilance. Again, relapse is not a setback. It is surrender. You're surrendering to the very evil that you have been pushing so hard to get away from. So, instead of looking at it as a setback or what they call in the medication-assisted treatment world, a lapse, where if you do a substance, one night, randomly, but you don't do it anymore after that, they don't consider that a full-blown relapse. And I think that's a problem. I think that it needs to be looked at as fucking surrender. You're losing. Every time you relapse, you just lost that battle. Might not have lost the war, but you lost that battle. And now you have to go into another battle and start all over again. Start from the beginning. Whereas before you chose to immerse yourself into this battle of losing because you chose to relapse. And yes, we could argue that outside external influences can play a part into that, which I know very much so can. But at the end of the day, it is a choice, folks. Is it not? And this whole philosophy can be applied to life too, by the way, in general, not just relapse. Life as war is not a pessimistic view. It is a heroic one. It calls for courage, discipline, and engagement. It transforms existence from passive drifting into active conquest. And I would argue that there's many out here who don't want people to have this mindset. They want you to look at it as a pessimistic view and not a heroic one. They don't want too many heroes. They don't want people of courage and discipline and engagement, because those people can't be controlled. Moving on to section 2, the nature of sovereignty. Self-rule as the highest victory. So, what does it mean to win? In this philosophy, victory is not measured by wealth, fame, or external validation. It is measured, again, by sovereignty. The ability to govern oneself completely. Sovereignty is the highest form of freedom because it is not granted by others. It is claimed through mastery of thyself, folks. Defining sovereignty real quick. So sovereignty is self-rule. It is the state in which your conscious will directs your life, rather than being dragged by impulses, fears, or external forces. It is not indulgence or chaos. It is disciplined autonomy. Freedom through discipline. Paradoxically, true freedom requires structure. The sovereign is free because they command themselves. Without discipline, freedom collapses into slavery to desire. Radical responsibility. So sovereignty demands ownership of every choice. Excuses are chains. Accountability is liberation. I have found this to be so damn true in my recovery. The truth has set me free, in a sense. Like being honest with myself. Owning the truth, being accountable. It will set you free if you truly own your shit. It will internally set you free, folks. I'm telling you right now. Trust me. So the foundations of this philosophy kind of stemmed, like I said earlier, from Stoicism, Nietzsche, and Carl Jung. And then, of course, the Bushido samurai way of life. And I know I touched on Stoicism and Nietzsche, but Jung, you know, what he said is sovereignty requires integration of the shadow. And his philosophy is the one that I resonate with the most. His philosophy is what has radically improved my recovery and my view on recovery, addiction, the whole 9 yards, folks. If you are struggling with substance abuse right now, I highly encourage you to find some time today to research the teachings of Carl Gustav Jung. And that is Jung spelled with a J. J-U-N-G. And I encourage you to sit there. In fact, I challenge you to sit there and just listen to anything, any video that you can find where it's sharing his teachings on the self, on the shadow self, on addiction, on integration, any of that. Just listen. And I guarantee you that you will start noticing some similarities. And you'll start to begin to realize that what I'm saying here holds very much truth. So, let's dive into the integration of the shadow, in fact. So, the shadow is the unconscious, the repository of suppressed desires, fears, and instincts, and if ignored, it sabotages sovereignty. If embraced, it becomes a source of strength. So why does integration matter? Well, denial breeds subjugation. The sovereign does not fear darkness, they wield it. And then individuation. Jung called this process individuation, the journey toward wholeness. Sovereignty is not purity, it is completeness. And so the architecture of sovereignty, I would argue, is clarity, discipline, and awareness. And those are the things that you need to build it, to build your sovereignty. So clarity, let's define that for a minute. Know your values. Without them, you drift. So discipline. Habits are the infrastructure of freedom. And then awareness. Observe your thoughts. The unexamined mind is a conquered territory. And so a practical application that can be done here, some daily rituals, for example, like meditation, which I do on a daily basis, and breath work. Journaling and reflection are weapons of sovereignty. You gotta have boundaries. So guard your time and attention. Every distraction is an invading army. Look at it from that perspective. Every distraction that you have is an invading army. And integration practices, shadow work. Acknowledge your fears, your desires, and contradictions without judgment. I've got a closing thought on this section that I will leave you folks with. So sovereignty is not a static state. It is a dynamic practice. It is the art of ruling the inner kingdom in a world that constantly seeks to dethrone you. To win is to be sovereign, not once, but every single freaking day. Alrighty, so the next section I have of this episode is the enemy within, subjugation and the shadow. So if sovereignty is victory, then subjugation is defeat. But the enemy is not an external tyrant, it is the part of ourselves we refuse to confront. The war is internal, and the battlefield is the psyche. To lose is to be ruled by unconscious forces, fears, and compulsions. This is the essence of subjugation, the abdication of self-rule to the shadow. Subjugation is not mere failure, folks. It is, like I said earlier, surrender. It is the state in which your choices are dictated by impulses you do not understand and fears you do not face. It manifests as addiction, the compulsion to escape reality, apathy, the refusal to engage with life, and self-sabotage, the unconscious drive to undermine your own progress. In this philosophy, losing is about is not about external circumstances. It is about internal collapse. Sorry, folks, I'm having a really freaking bad pain in my back right now. Holy cow. Whoa. I'll have to repeat that again. In this philosophy, losing is not about external circumstances. It is about internal collapse. The shadow as adversary. Jung described the shadow as the repository of everything we repress, our fears, desires, and instincts. It is not inherently evil, but it is dangerous when ignored. The shadow seeks expression, and if denied, it acts through sabotage. The unconscious rule. When you do not integrate the shadow, it governs you from the dark. You think you are free, but you are a puppet. And then projection. The shadow distorts perception. You see in others what you refuse to see in yourself. Oh man. I know for a fact if everybody would take a moment and just focus on that, what I just said, I guarantee you that you would find in others what you refuse to find in yourself. It's simple. We are but mere reflection of each other. Different aspects of ourselves. The mechanics of defeat. So how does subjugation happen? So avoidance, which refusing to confront your discomfort. Passivity, believing neutrality exists. And fragmentation, living in denial of parts of yourself. Every action of avoidance strengthens the enemy. Every moment of unconsciousness is a lost battle. And we have some philosophical parallels here with this. So Freud, repression breeds neurosis. What is buried returns with force. And then Nietzsche, beware that when fighting monsters, you yourself do not become a monster. Ignoring the shadow makes you vulnerable to becoming what you fear. And then existentialism, bad faith, lying to oneself, is the root of inauthentic existence. So some practical signs of subjugation. You feel controlled by habits you cannot break. Wow. You blame circumstances instead of taking responsibility. You fear solitude because it forces self-confrontation. So I resonate with all three of these. I did have fear of solitude. I overcame that. I did blame my circumstances. I stopped doing that. And I still feel controlled by my habits I cannot break. For instance, smoking cigarettes. That's one of them. Another one, well, I'm slowly breaking this one, would be the medication-assisted treatment that I'm in. It's like the last straw of the addiction war, so to speak. Because I used this methadone to get me off of all these other substances I was using, which I just replaced it. I know that. And I'm only now, in the past year, been like super conscious of the fact that I did replace everything else with just one legal substance. That's where kind of all this has stemmed from. So, when I speak on this stuff, I'm also speaking to myself. Because I believe in taking one's own advice, and I find speaking my advice out to others helps me take my own advice. I don't know why, but it does. Anyways, moving forward. So the path out. Subjugation is not permanent. You need to keep this in your mind. Because the antidote is integration. The shadow work. Name what you fear. Write it. Speak it. Radical honesty. Admit contradictions without judgment. And then conscious action. Every deliberate choice weakens unconscious rule. The enemy within is formidable because it wears your face, but it is not invincible. To win, you must turn toward the darkness, not away from it, folks. Sovereignty begins where denial ends. Moving on to section 4 of this philosophy, the philosophy of combat, life as a campaign. So if life is war, then it is not a single battle, it is a campaign. A campaign is a series of engagements fought over time, requiring strategy, endurance, and adaptability. Victory is not achieved in one decisive moment, but through relentless commitment to the fight. This section explores the philosophy of combat, how to approach life as a disciplined warrior in a perpetual struggle for sovereignty. So, combat as a metaphor for existence. Combat is not chaos. It is structured conflict. It demands strategy, discipline, adaptability. Strategy would be like random effort is a waste of effort. Every move must serve a purpose. Strategy. And then a soldier without discipline is a liability. Likewise, a mind without discipline is vulnerable. Adaptability. Conditions change. The sovereign adjusts without surrendering principles. This framing transforms life from passive drifting into active engagement. You are not a spectator, you are a combatant. Sartre argued that existence precedes essence. We are defined by our choices. Combat philosophy amplifies this truth. Existential engagement. Every decision is a strike. Choosing discipline over indulgence is a blow against subjugation. Every habit is a weapon. Habits are not neutral. They either fortify sovereignty or weaken it. So, we've got some Nietzschean will to power. Combat is the expression of will to power, the drive to overcome, to create, to affirm life. Nietzsche warned against herd morality, which breeds passivity. The warrior rejects conformity and embraces the burden of self-creation. So combat as affirmation. Fighting is not despair. It is the ultimate yes to life. It says, I will not drift. I will not submit. And the Stoics taught that control lies in governing thyself, not the world. Combat philosophy aligns perfectly. Focus on the inner battlefield. You cannot control the terrain, but you can control your stance. And then endurance as victory. Pain is not defeat, it is training. Like in the Marine Corps, we always say, pain is weakness leaving the body. So every hardship is a forge for strength. The structure of the campaign. A successful campaign requires clear objective, so define what sovereignty means to you. Health, clarity, purpose. Daily engagements, so treat each day as a battle. Win the morning, win the day. And then long-term vision. Do not confuse skirmishes with the war. A setback is not surrender. So a practical application here would be your morning rituals. Begin the day with intention, meditation, exercise, planning. Battlefield awareness. Identify triggers and vulnerabilities. Prepare defenses. And then victory metrics. track progress, celebrate small wins. They are the footholds in enemy territory. Combat philosophy is not about aggression towards others. It is about mastery of self. Life as a campaign demands courage, clarity, and relentless engagement. The war is lifelong, but every battle won brings you closer to sovereignty. And so section 5, folks, the integration imperative, embracing the shadow. Victory in this philosophy does not come from annihilating the shadow, but from integrating it. The shadow, the hidden, repressed aspects of the psyche is not an enemy to destroy, but a force to harness. Jung, as in Carl Jung, taught the wholeness. That wholeness, not purity, is the goal of individuation. Sorry about that. Sovereignty demands integration, because what you deny will rule you from the dark. And so what is the shadow? Well, the shadow is the unconscious repository of everything we reject. Fears, desires, instincts, and contradictions. It is not inherently evil, but it becomes destructive when ignored. It is the part of you that whispers in moments of weakness. It sabotages your plans and projects your flaws onto others. Dual nature. The shadow contains both darkness and potential. Within it lies creativity, passion, and strength, if you dare to face it. Why do we fear it? Well, confronting the shadow means admitting imperfection. It threatens the ego's illusion of control, and the ego is not even real. So why does integration matter, folks? Well, avoidance breeds subjugation. What you refuse to face gains power. Denial is surrender. Wholeness over fragmentation. So sovereignty is not about being good or pure. It is about being whole, owning every part of yourself. Authenticity. Integration liberates you from self-deception. You stop living in bad faith and start living authentically. So the philosophical foundations of this section, as you could tell, I'm sure, was some Jungian philosophy and psychology. The individual process of becoming whole requires embracing the shadow. Nietzsche, one must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star. Chaos is not the enemy. It is the raw material of creation. Existentialism. The process of integration. The integration is not passive. It is active engagement. Recognition. Name the shadow. Identify patterns of fear, anger, envy, and desire. Dialogue. Converse with the shadow through journaling, meditation, or therapy. Ask, what do you want? What do you fear? Acceptance. Do not moralize the shadow. It is not bad. It is part of you. Harnessing. Transform shadow energy into strength. Anger becomes assertiveness. Fear becomes caution. Desire becomes ambition. So the practical application here would be shadow journaling. Write down recurring thoughts you hide from others. Explore their roots. Trigger analysis. When something provokes you intensely, ask, what part of me does this reflect? Oh man, this stuff, I laugh because it resonates with me so deeply. That's why I make these episodes. But when I'm reading, what I write down, it really makes me think like even deeper on the matter. So that's why I'm laughing. So creative expression, art, writing, and movement can channel shadow energy constructively. So integration is the ultimate act of sovereignty. It is the moment when you stop waging war against yourself and start commanding every part of your being. The shadow is not your enemy. It is your army. To win, you must lead it. Section 6, the ethics of war. Honor, purpose, and persistence. If life is war, then how do we fight without becoming what we despise? The philosophy of sovereignty is not nihilistic conquest. It is a disciplined, heroic campaign guided by ethics, honor, purpose, and persistence form the moral backbone of the struggle. So honor, fight with integrity, do not seek victory through the deception of self. And purpose, winning is not the domination of others, but the liberation of self. Persistence, there is no final victory. The war is lifelong. So without them, victory becomes hollow, and the warrior becomes tyrant over self rather than sovereign. Why ethics matter in inner warfare. War without ethics is chaos. In the external world, this leads to atrocities. In the internal world, it leads to self-destruction. The fight for sovereignty must be principled because honor preserves integrity. Without honor, sovereignty becomes domination of self through cruelty. And purpose gives meaning. Without purpose, the war becomes endless suffering without direction. And persistence ensures continuity. Without persistence, even the noblest cause collapses under fatigue. So honor the code of the inner warrior. Honor is the refusal to betray your values, even when no one is watching. It means radical honesty. Do not lie to yourself. Self-deception is the first act of surrender, folks. And then integrity in action. Do not seek shortcuts that compromise your principles. Victory at the cost of virtue's defeat. And respect for the self. Treat yourself as a sovereign, not a slave. Discipline is not punishment, it is empowerment. And the philosophical parallels of this section is Stoicism, which virtue is the only true good. Honor aligns with living in accordance with reason and nature. And then the Bushido samurai, the samurai code emphasized honor as the essence of life, even in death. Purpose, the compass of the campaign. Purpose transforms struggle into meaning. Without it, war becomes nihilism. Purpose answers. Why fight? And why? What is the vision? So, why fight? Sovereignty is not an end in itself. It is the foundation for creation, contribution, and transcendence. What is the vision? Define what sovereignty enables: health, clarity, service, art, leadership. Persistence, the discipline of eternity. The war for sovereignty is lifelong. There is no final victory, only continuous engagement. Persistence means endurance through hardship. Pain is not defeat, it is training. Adaptation without surrender. Change tactics, not principles. And daily recommitment. Win the day, then win the next. And this parallels with the philosophical views of Marcus Aurelius, which I quote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." End quote. And then Camus, the myth of Sisyphus, teaches that persistence, even in absurdity, is heroic. And so a practical application: honor practices, daily self-audit. Did I act in alignment with my values? Purpose rituals, morning reflection. Why am I fighting today? Persistence systems, habit tracking, accountability partners, and resilience training. Those accountability partners, folks, can be absolutely life-changing. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to be your own accountability partner, because there's not always going to be somebody there to hold you accountable. But I will say that having an accountability partner and habit tracking and resilience training have been vital in my path in recovery. So the ethics of war elevate the struggle from mere survival to noble pursuit. Honor keeps you true. Purpose keeps you focused. Persistence keeps you moving. Without these, sovereignty becomes tyranny. With them, it becomes liberation. And so section 7, the call to arms, choosing sovereignty every day. The philosophy of sovereignty is not a theory to admire. It is a discipline to live. Every day, every moment, you stand at a crossroads, win or lose. There is no middle ground. It's simple. You have those two choices, win or lose. Every breath is a decision. Every habit is the front line. Every thought is a weapon, and every word spoken is engineering. To win is to rise. To lose is to fall. Choose sovereignty. Sovereignty is not a one-time achievement. It is a perpetual act of choice. This section is the rallying cry, the call to arms that demands action, not contemplation. So the reality of choice, binary truth. Every decision tilts the scale toward sovereignty or subjugation. There is no neutral act. So you're either going towards one or the other. Micro decisions matter. The war is fought in the smallest moments. Whether you rise when the alarm rings, whether you speak truth when silence tempts. And continuous engagement. Sovereignty is not a destination. It is a practice renewed on a daily basis. And why the call to arms is so urgent? Well, entropy never sleeps. Passivity is defeat. The forces of decay, fear, distraction, addiction are relentless. Time is a battlefield, folks. Every hour wasted is territory lost. Every discipline act is ground reclaimed. And identity is dynamic. So you are not fixed. You become what you repeatedly choose. Simple. The warrior's mindset. Resolve. Treat every day as a campaign. Begin with intention. End with reflection. Courage. Face discomfort willingly. Growth hides behind resistance. And honor. Fight clean. No self-deception. No shortcuts. Practical framework for daily sovereignty. So, morning declaration. Begin the day with a vow. Today I choose sovereignty. And then 3 non-negotiables. Identify 3 actions that define victory for the day. For instance, exercise, journaling, focused work. An evening audit. So ask yourself, did I win today? And if not, plan the counterattack for tomorrow's battle. And the philosophical reinforcement to this, again, Nietzsche. I quote, become who you are. Sovereignty is self-creation, end quote. And Marcus Aurelius, quote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength, end quote. And Camus, embrace the absurdity of endless struggle. Find meaning in the fight itself. And so here's some food for thought. The call to arms is simple yet profound. Choose sovereignty every day, every moment. There is no final victory, only continuous engagement. The winning or losing war is eternal, but so is the possibility of triumphing. Having said, let me leave you all with a closing reflection. This manifesto is a declaration of war against passivity, fear, and unconsciousness. It is a philosophy of radical engagement, a refusal to drift. It aligns with existential courage, Jungian depth, and Stoic strength, but it is unique, a binary ethic of victory and defeat, simple, common logic. Review it, apply it, live it, and win. Win, win. Win, folks. Win. May you all win in whatever battle or war you are personally fighting right now. I know you can, but do you know that you can, is the question. Do you believe in yourself enough? And if not, why? After the why, ask the what. What can I do to overcome this battle and win the war? Mind you, some battles will be lost, but as long as you acquire the lesson, then was it really a loss? It's a good question. So seek the lesson. Is the lost battles and make the necessary. Seek the lesson in the lost battles and make the necessary changes to win the next battle, and improvise, adapt, and overcome. Semper Fidelis, which means always faithful, for those who don't know. And that's going to do it for today, folks. I hope that, this resonates with people. It really does with me. I mean, it's why I put this whole philosophy together, essentially. Grabbing from the Jungian philosophy, Nietzsche and Marcus Aurelius and many others. But it's a product of what I've been going through and how I'm choosing to face it. And so, having said, I'm Roby with the Manufactured Mind. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day. And remember, chin up, chest out, walk tall, and stay frosty. And always, always strive to be better and do better, folks. Be better, do better. Look within. That's where you'll find answers. I promise. It's Roby. Out.